when I listen to Hendrix, I would not think initially like, oh, like that would translate well to a violin. But you make it happen.
Hendrix was one of actually the first guitar player that I attempted. The very
Oh,
first solo I ever attempted to cover was the Star-Spangled Banner Jimi Hendrix style. My dad, he had a guitar and a Marshall amp, and he just knew some chords and for fun, you know. And I had a cheap electric violin from eBay that I had gotten. And so I remember like after school, I came home one day and plugged it into the amp, and I'm like, you know, messing around, putting it up to it, getting feedback like from the violin to the amplifier and messing with the settings and the gain. And then, trying to get it to achieve some of the sounds that Hendrix did. And I remember my parents, you know, they came home from work and I was like, look what I can do. And I played the Star Spangled Banner in the style of Jimi Hendrix. And that was, I think, my very first cover attempt. But I think that those early days of trying to he didn't play with a lot of pedals, you know, he was making those sounds with like very primitive effects. The
yeah.
things he did were so creative because of his limited, you know, we have access to everything now, but he had very limited access to different things at that time. And I think that a lot of that I just did with an amplifier, you know, kind of like he did. And obviously, like you have to add a wah into the mix to really sound like him on some of the stuff. But I think that capturing that rawness of his sound prior to the digital age of things, I think is important. And the swagger, like Hendrix just had this swagger about him, you know?
So that's really interesting. I wanted to touch on that with you about whether you'd ever done that song. Have you put it out there? Because I haven't seen it if you have.
I think there's an old recording of me on YouTube doing it. But it's not recorded professionally through Logic the way that I do now. Like I just had a cell phone and a Marshall amp. So it sounds, you know, it's not the best sounding thing because it's from a cell phone,
Yeah.
but there is a video of me out there doing that.
That's great. So I'm going to check that out. I've noticed also you seem to be a very big Buffalo Bills fan. Uh,
That's true.
so I was wondering, are the Bills aware of you? And why haven't they reached out and said, come play the national anthem before a Bills game? Or have
So
they?
some of my videos have been shared in the Bills Mafia Facebook page and they've gone viral. Like a lot of thousands of people like them and watch them. And a lot of people will say that like, oh, you got to come play at Highmark Stadium. And the funny thing is I played at two football stadiums. I played at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas here, and I've played at the Falcons Stadium in Atlanta. I've never played at the home stadium of my
Yeah,
hometown and my favorite team. So maybe someday I moved away. My whole career has been on the West Coast. I wasn't
sure.
a pro musician, so I don't really know anyone in Buffalo. As funny as that sounds, because I was never a pro there. I was just a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
So I'm hopefully someday I'll get to play it.